This is Dan Rogers, your host on We the People Town Square, coming to you from the center of the universe, the high plains of Texas, near the headwaters of the Prairie Dog Town Fork of the Red River. Today is February the 1st, 2024. Today we are here with Gina Parker, who's running for the Criminal Court of Appeals, Place 7. Gina, welcome.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Let's start off and tell the primary voters, which is the people who vote in the Republican primary, we hope, that why you're running for this place on the Criminal Court of Appeals.
That's a great question. And I had hung up my political spurs a few years ago and decided I would just help local candidates win. But then the Stevens decision came down by the Court of Criminal Appeals, and in a majority opinion, this court stripped our Texas Attorney General of his power to prosecute election fraud unilaterally.
So can you explain a little bit to the voters why that case is so important to them?
It's very important because what that means, it means that the Attorney General has to get permission from a local DA before he can prosecute an election fraud case. And in our blue cities, where we have Soros-backed DAs, that is highly unlikely to happen. So that means that election fraud will go unchecked, and that could turn Texas blue. And that's a big deal for Republicans and for people who have conservative values.
So how is it that George Soros, who's not a U.S. citizen, is he?
I'm not sure about all those details, but
how can he come in and flood our the state of Texas with money and have so much influence if he's not a Texas citizen?
Well, I think that these PACs can give money, and they do across the United States. The various rules depending on whether you're a state or a federal PAC, and I couldn't give you all the details on that. So because I'm not getting any money from him.
But the fact is they're doing it, and you had a tremendous amount of election fraud in Harris County.
Yes.
And now they just don't care because there's nobody to hold them accountable.
That's exactly right. And not just in Harris County, but I was doing an interview with some conservatives out of San Antonio, and they were telling me how bad it is there. And, of course, we have problems in Dallas County as well. And really, as I travel across the state campaigning, I'm hearing of, even issues in some of the conservative areas.
Yes. I think it's in every county.
Absolutely.
And nobody's willing to do their, really, I believe the county commissioners have the responsibility to choose the election system in their county, but they're abdicating that responsibility and not doing it. And we've got to wake them up and the people up to make them take back their local communities.
I totally agree with that. And one of the things that has been encouraging as I've studied the Stevens case and I've become more involved, the Attorney General, Paxton, has really been on the cutting edge of stopping election fraud in Texas. And I understand at the time that this case was issued, he had over 500 cases. And so that's a lot. And, I think that would have been a growing number given what we're seeing across Texas and across the nation. So
one of the primary motivators for you to jump into this race was a Stevens case.
Yes, absolutely. When the case first came out, I called a friend of mine who's very active politically, and I said, I just read this, in the quorum report. Did I misunderstand something? Did our all-Republican, basically 8 of the 9 Republicans on the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals issue this decision? I was just shocked, actually. And it's really not a well-reasoned decision, in my opinion. It's an erroneous decision. It's not well-grounded. It overturned precedent of the Court of Criminal Appeals and also of its sister court, the Texas Supreme Court. And if I might interject here for just a minute, there's some confusion about the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals and how we function. So basically, we have 2 Supreme Courts in Texas. We have the Texas Supreme Court, which here is the court of final resort for civil cases. And then we have the Texas Court of Criminal Court, which is a equal court, and it's the court of last resort for all criminal cases. And so that's the court that issued this really bad decision in Stevens and took away the Attorney General's power to effectively prosecute election fraud. And thank thankfully, we have an attorney general that's, he's bold and he's standing up and he's calling this court out for this bad decision.
Yeah, he's standing up for the people.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, I'm traveling the state, and this is an interesting thing, especially following the impeachment trial. It's a really amazing. He is a grassroots rock star, Ken Paxton is. The people absolutely love him. And and it's because he is standing up for us. And I think that makes a really big difference.
You're a little bit unique as a candidate because not only are you an accomplished attorney, but you're also a businesswoman. Is that right?
That's correct.
Can you explain to the voters a little bit about your background?
Sure. Well, basically, I've been practicing law. I started out as a city attorney and an assistant county attorney, and then I became an assistant district attorney, and then I've been in private practice since that time. And then as a result of my law practice, I had a lot of criminal defendants that came in. And so, honestly, I would share the gospel with them. I would tell them the legal work they had to pay for, and the preaching was free if they cared to listen. And so as a result, what I found is a lot of times people really did want help. And the biggest impediment to them getting off the cycle of criminal behavior was to find a job. And, that's hard to do. And 20 years ago, it was really hard to do. Someone with a felony conviction couldn't find a job. So I started a dental manufacturing company, and one of the goals was to help give people a second chance so that they could find employment and they wouldn't go out and reoffend. And that company is actually, I have 2 managers that run that company. I always get the question, how are you going to have time to do this? Well, you ask a busy person if you want to get a job done. And so I have very strong administrative skills, and I have 2 excellent managers that co-manage together. And then my brother is also involved in the business.
Well, that's good. So you're doing something for the people that need help.
Absolutely.
And giving them a chance.
Yes.
So you're an attorney with a heart.
Yeah. People will say that's not possible, but yes.
Well, very good. So what would you do on the court? What do you think what would you do different if you became a member of the Court of Criminal Appeals than what's currently being done?
Well, I think one thing, I would uphold the rule of law. This Stevens case is not the first problematic case, and I think the court is more moderate as a whole, and that means that generally they're not following the law, like what I would hope to see. They've overturned a number of state statutes. In fact, I want to point out an interesting case. In 2013 in Lovie State, this court did a very similar thing. The Attorney General was required by a state statute that the legislature passed. The court was required to, a person challenging a state statute was required to give notice to the Attorney General that they were challenging the state statute. There was a form that was required to be filled out. And then the Attorney General was allowed 45 days to file a response if that's the path that the AG decided to take. Well, this court struck down that provision in 2013 as unconstitutional on the same basis of separation of powers. It's an even worse decision, in my opinion, than the Stevens decision. And as a result, the voters of Texas had to come back 4 years later and pass a constitutional amendment to fix that problem. So there are a number of cases, a number of examples. And one of the other things, I was looking at some of the statistics, and the volume of work coming out of the court is from what I understand, I have visited with another candidate, David Shank, who's running for presiding judge, and he's very familiar with all of this. And as we've discussed, the volume of work is not really, doesn't measure up to the level of job responsibilities that this court has. And so I think that's an issue. One of the things that was pointed out to me recently is that this court only heard, over the last several years, 13 oral arguments a year. I mean, that is a very low number. Their sister court, the Texas Supreme Court, hears about 75 cases per year. So that's a big difference. And I think oral argument is really important because you really get to engage with the attorneys, and listening is a gift that I think a leader gives to people. And oral arguments are a way to really listen to to the people that are part of the system. So when it says, as a judge, I don't have all the answers, and I want to hear what you have to say on these issues, and I'm going to set this case for oral argument and give you an opportunity to really engage with all the judges on the court. So I think that would be something that would be beneficial, to make some changes where we were producing a higher level of work and more engaged and more available.
So it's time to make a change.
Absolutely.
In the Court of Appeals.
We need change. We need change for a number of reasons. And one thing that's interesting in my race and in David Shank's race is we're running against two ladies, and they are going to be aged out. So they can't serve the full 6-year term because we didn't pass the constitutional amendment that extended the time for them to serve to 80. And so that means that they can serve not quite or right at 4 years instead of the full 6-year term. And that means that the people don't get a choice. So let's say that they were elected. That's not going to happen because we're planning on victory. But if they were to be elected, that means that the governor would make the appointment rather than the people having a voice. And this happens really a lot with both these courts.
Well,
so
a lot of people may think, well, that's fine. Abbott will probably make a good pick, but what if he's not governor?
Right. And that's the real question, especially with the election fraud issue. So when you have that issue and, we got a lot of people moving here from blue states. And so, there's a lot of change in the air. So we need to work hard and we need to really engage the grassroots.
Well, people need to understand. And I think the average voter out there is way smarter than most of the people in public office. And they know how important their vote is. And I believe under the current system, people are getting somewhat frustrated and they're not voting. Our actual percentage of people that are voting is declining. It's been declining since 2000. Since they brought these machines in and this sort of thing, the percentage of people is dropping like a rock. And I think a lot of it is because they don't have confidence in their vote anymore.
It's very disheartening to see that. I think you're right. I totally
think
agree.
What the voters that are watching this, they're voters. They're interested or they wouldn't be watching. But they need to tell their buddies how important each vote is and to encourage their friends who may be disillusioned that the way to beat the system is to vote.
Absolutely. And yes, and to get others to vote. I have some encouraging news. I have never seen as much grassroots activism in all the years that I've been involved politically as I've seen this year on the campaign trail. It's really amazing. There are so many Tea Party group, Patriot groups. Of course, we have the Republican women's groups, the county parties that do their job. But all of these groups are engaged, and they are really vetting candidates. And after they vet candidates, then they endorse candidates, and they send out these endorsements to big email lists. In Montgomery County, the Montgomery County Tea Party there, they block walk. I delivered 15,000 flyers. And that's just part of what we've delivered. In about 30 days, I will have given out myself or people helping me with my campaign over 100,000 push cards. That's a lot of activism. And these people they're fed up. It's like I spoke to a group last night. I said, are you tired of judges and conservatives promising one thing and then not delivering? Well, the way you take care of that is you go back and vote them out of office. And when you start holding candidates accountable, like these 3 judges on this court, what will happen is, they're going to pay attention the next time or the next, especially if we win. It's the strongest message we could possibly send in this election cycle is to vote, to vote out the rhinos in our party and to vote in conservatives, whether it's a state rep or it's a local judge or a local sheriff. We need conservatives all the way up and down the ballot.
Yeah. The hard part for the voter is, though, to know, because they all say they're conservative.
Very true.
These people say they're conservative when they run for office, but they're not. And
Yes.
because I believe that they know the voters are conservative. Even the Democrats, most Democrats are conservative. They don't buy into this liberal stuff. So it's a problem. And then once these people get into the party and get elected as public officials, they flip.
It's true.
And it's very, very hard to sort those out. But that
Very
goes
hard.
back to the groups that you're talking about. They're doing the vetting and they're doing the work. So that means they are supporting you and David Shank's candidacy and Lee Finley's.
Yes, we have a lot of support. It's really quite amazing. I've been endorsed by every major conservative group: Texas Right to Life, We the People, Montgomery County Tea Party, Texas Homeschool Coalition, of course, Attorney General Ken Paxton, the Agricultural Commissioner Sid Miller, who the grassroots love both of these guys. I mean, when you travel, I have people tell me they're endorsing you, so I'm voting for you, because they have gotten out front. Both of these men have been out front. They've been to the forefront of really fighting hard for our conservative values, and I think that makes a really big difference. And so, and these questionnaires are not easy. Some of them are like an open book law school exam, but I have to really say, way to go. Keep up the hard work to all these groups and keep making a difference. Hold these people accountable. Do it on the front end, and then once they're elected, keep communicating and keep interviewing. Don't stop what you're doing. I think people win in politics when they don't go home. So what happens is people lose a race, or their candidate doesn't win, or something happens that they don't like, and they quit. You're never going to win, whether it's in business or it's in life, or it's in politics, if you quit. The victory goes to those who persevere and stay in the race.
Well, I think that's very well said. Do you have a website or a way people can learn more about you?
I do. My campaign website is pretty easy. It's GinaParkerCampaign.com. And they can also follow me on Facebook and on Twitter.
You need to be aware that your opponent has a similar name, right?
Yes, she does. So it's Gina for Judge. And that's what we've been telling everyone. So, yes, she does. So that's very challenging. And, but I will say, as I'm meeting people they have down, they seem to have that name down. And all of my campaign literature has really emphasized my first name, Gina for Judge. Everything I post, everything we do, because my opponent has the same middle name. So you want to vote for the person with the last name of Parker.
The shortest name is the best name.
That's correct. That's a good way. That's good. I'm going to steal that from you.
Yeah. All right, Gina. Well, good luck out there on the campaign trail, and be careful.
All right. Thank you for having me. Keep up the great work here.